interview since being confirmed to U.S. Trade Representative is my old friend Jameson Greer. Jameson, first of all, congrats on your position. I know you're in the hot seat, but still, it's a great job.
Thank you, Larry. I really appreciate it. Very happy to be here and happy to be serving President Trump once again.
All right. Well, you are on the hot seat. Jameson, as one of the architects of Mr. Trump's policy, all right, you know, I'm reading in the newspapers this morning especially, the world trading system's coming to an end. Global trade is coming to an end. Jameson, I'm not buying it. What's happening is Mr. Trump is asking for a reordering of the world trade system. So predatory practices on America will stop. We'll have a level playing field, and we can sell some exports instead of being blocked. It's not that the world trade system is ending. It's that the breakdown of the world trade system may be ending. What do you think of all that?
President Biden left us with the highest trade deficit in human history, $1.2 trillion, and it hollows out our manufacturing base. And this new program is set to resolve that emergency, reshore manufacturing, and restore American prosperity.
You know, Jameson, just on the point, I always like to bring some numbers into it. We had a trade report today. You may have seen it. And it sort of tells the story, okay? Adjusted for inflation, real net imports, U.S. imports, up 20%. U.S. exports flat at 0.7%. So we're importing, but we're not exporting. We're not exporting because they have so many barriers, China, European Union, you name it, with high tariffs, cheap wages, overregulation, value-added tax. Our exports have done nothing, and that's all got to change. Is that a key part of your thinking?
That's exactly right. And you'll remember, Larry, from the first term, and we need to do it now. President Trump tried really hard his first term to get people to do it through negotiation. And now, at this point, we have to take action for the American people, and we've done it.
I mean, they're selling to us, but they won't let us sell to them. I mean, in many ways, it's just that simple. And the whole world trading system it's just been almost a farce for the last 25 some odd years. China, the World Trade Organization leading the way. Anyway, we agree on all that. Jameson, let me ask you, you have the reciprocity charges, and you also have the 10% basic rate. What was the thinking behind having both of those?
Certainly. Well, we want to have the golden rule for the golden age and treat others as we're treated. So that's where the reciprocity comes from. We want to make sure that when we're looking at all the, really the value of the tariffs and non-tariff barriers that countries impose on us, we quantify that. We look at the trade deficit we might have with the country, and that's a really good way to have a proxy for what they charge us. Now, some of these countries, we might have a surplus or maybe the rate is low, but we still should be running up the score in these countries. We have unfair trading practices in all of these places, even if their tariff levels are low. We put out a big report a few days ago, and the president waived this yesterday at his press conference. It details all the ways that these countries stop it. And so we have this 10% baseline. We want to make sure we catch all of the unfair trade practices, and we want to prevent cheating. We don't want to have people who are in a high-rate country decide that they want to use some lower-rate country or a zero-rate country to arbitrage the situation. So everyone will have a baseline 10%. We have to deal with the deficit. We have to deal with the unfair trade practices and non-reciprocal treatment, and that's the way to do it. Make sure we don't have any loopholes or leaks in the system.
Yeah, can I just pause on that one point? I talked to Steve Myron last night about this. Wilbur Ross raised it a couple days ago on this show. You just mentioned it. The problem of transshipping, like China going through Vietnam or China going through Mexico to avoid tariffs. It'd be nice if we could stop that as well.
I agree with that, and part of having the 10% is to deter that. We also have strong rules in place, and a lot of it is an enforcement issue where we need to make sure that Customs and Border Protection is making sure they're checking where things are coming from, they're auditing entries, and I'm actively looking at other ways to make sure that high tariff countries aren't using lower tariff countries to sneak goods through or just do minor assembly and bring it through to avoid the tariffs. We don't want the order to be undermined. We really want to face this emergency head on, resolve the deficit, reshore manufacturing, and achieve reciprocity with our trading partners.
And one other thing, this de minimis exemption from tariffs, especially from China, President Trump is ending that. This pleases me no end. It was a loophole for these small Chinese retailers to clobber our retailers. But also, you know what, Jameson, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but there have been a lot of reports that this de minimis opening, I think less than $800 per package and so forth, the customs didn't look at it carefully, and there was a lot of fentanyl and drug smuggling through that. So, I mean, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think ending the de minimis thing was a very good idea.
I agree. And on a bipartisan basis, we've heard members of Congress talking about reforming de minimis for the past few years. And so, again, this is an opportunity to do that. It doesn't mean that if you're a tourist or you're bringing in a gift from overseas on your personal vacation that you can't bring it in duty free. You can. But all of this commercial de minimis under $800, we're not going to allow that to be a loophole anymore to evade tariff regimes or to bring in things like you said, right? Fentanyl or counterfeit goods. That's a big problem, too. So that takes care of that loophole as well.
Jameson, you were around, of course, in the first term when the great Bob Lighthizer, whom I was with at a conference just the other day, negotiated USMCA. It's a pretty good deal, if you ask me. He feels it was a good deal. So far as
well, Mexico and Canada, they are still subject to the tariff regime relative to fentanyl and migration flows. If you recall, Larry, President Trump put tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China to get them to really take action suddenly and firmly with respect to fentanyl and migration over the borders. That regime still is set for Mexico and Canada. Under that regime, if goods are not compliant with the USMCA rules of origin, they've had 5 years to be compliant, but if they're not, they pay the 25% tariff. If they are compliant, they come in. They follow the rules that we set. That's what we would expect to see, and that's the regime that continues for now with Mexico and Canada.
Do you anticipate a more generalized review, I think, of USMCA? I think it's due in the middle of next year or May of next year. Is that review going to be underway?
We do. We're excited for that. Believe me, we already have a lot of ideas on what we need to do to that deal to make it better and improve it. We have some responsibilities to do some public consultation and get ideas from the public. There's a statute that requires us to do that. So at some point, we'll start that process. But believe me, we're already thinking of all the ways we need to tighten up that deal in a big way to make sure that third countries aren't benefiting from it, to make sure we're incentivizing American production, and to make sure that Canada and Mexico live up to their commitments with respect to market access.
And let me ask you, Mr. Trump is the master negotiator, the art of the deal, and so forth and so on. Reciprocity is a deal-making kind of operation. You charge us, we'll charge you, but if you cut your charge on, then we'll cut our charge. A lot of countries I'm reading about, maybe the EU, Israel certainly. The Indian ambassador has been calling me to report on negotiations with India. At what stage does Mr.